past 5. Let's get started. I'll call the meeting to order. Would you call the roll, please?
Yeah, so with us tonight on the CBRC is Roger Kirshner, Lisa Selman, Renee Anderson, Hobbs Waters, Parker Myris. And from the staff, we have myself, Jordan Cooper, and Norberto Delgadillo.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion for adopting the minutes from the last meeting?
I can make a motion to adopt the meeting minutes from our last meeting.
Okay, Lisa has moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we got 2 seconds. One was Hobbs and one was Parker as well. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those say no or opposed, their motion is carried. So now we're all ready to the CBRC work plan discussion, Jordan kindly listed the links to the annual budget for 21 to 22 and 2020 to 21 and the similar reports for the local option levy for those 2 years. And then CBRC did send a letter to the Joint Ways and Means Committee of the legislature when it was in session prior to their adoption of the what was it called, Norberto? The SIA Act, anyway. Student Improvement Act, I believe it's called.
With SIA and then subsequently with the federal relief dollars, I think that was ESSER.
Okay, fine. So I know Renee mentioned that she had read through those documents. Does anybody have any questions about those?
No, I think the only thing I looked at was kind of the dates of when the budget comes out and when our submission of those comments is due, and it's a pretty tight timeline. So just the group being conscious of that, it's probably, I think it's like a 2-week period, if that, where we have to get that all together. So just kind of giving a heads up to the committee that we're going to be all needing to provide input, and that's what I took away from is looking through what we wrote and then kind of the timeline. It's pretty tight. So
regardless of whether we succeed in getting it extended by another week or even possibly 2 weeks, it's a very short time to review a document that's as complex and as large as it is. Bear in mind that Portland Public Schools is one of the largest employers in the state, and it also has one of the largest budgets in the state. And so its proposed budget, once we receive it on the 26th of April this month, you will find out it's about as large as the New York City phone book. And the thrust of our meeting tonight is to actually map out a work plan as to how we best go about the task at hand this year. And the previous reports that were listed in the links that Jordan sent us are to show you how the committee has undertaken the task in the past. In all the years that I have been on the committee, there's been two reports, one on the local option levy and one on the budget itself. The budget report is more, well, it's larger in length usually, and the local option levy is oftentimes just a single pager. I guess if there's no other questions about the reports itself, I think we'll launch right into to the discussion about our work sessions, and I think rather than take them in the discussion in the order in which Jordan has listed them on the agenda, why don't we first adjust the report format? It would be my suggestion, I'll just put the boat in the water, that we use the previous reports as a suggested format that to be followed this year, largely because the annual review of the budget itself always harkens back to the board goals, the strategic vision of the district, and so on. And I think it behooves us to do something similar to that. The local option levy report is basically certifying that the district utilize the funds generated by the levy for the purpose that was promised to the voters when they voted the local option into effect, and that is that those funds be used for teachers and those positions that directly support teachers, and that's why there's a side account established that makes it easily identifiable how those funds are used, and so on. I see there's a couple items in the chat. Has anybody raised their hand? I can't see that on my screen, so I'll ask Jordan if that's the case.
I don't see any questions as of yet. Does anybody not have access to these documents that we're referring to and to the agenda? Okay, just want to make sure.
Well, let me just ask the question: are we comfortable with using the basic format of the previous reports as the format for this year's reports? If so, why don't you raise your thumb up like Renee has done that?
Yeah.
Jordan, you've got your answer. Now, as Lisa has pointed out, we get the budget on the 26th of April. In previous years, I can say if one is present at that board meeting when the budget is presented by the superintendent, usually hard copies can be distributed to us at that time. Otherwise, you'll receive it in the mail. If that's not the case, Roberto or Jordan need to correct me.
You are correct, Roger. And Alexandra, the magnificent Alexandra, has let me know that we are planning on printing those in the coming weeks and mailing them. But I will say once they're printed and we have them in hand, if anybody is by the district often and would rather we just hand it to you, I can also do that. Just let me know.
Well, I can just say personally, I'll be
We'll
there.
pick
on
mine up.
You're muted.
Yeah, just reach out to me by email and I'll be happy to bring one.
Okay.
But I'll let you know first.
So it's in discussions with staff, I have noted that we might double up our meetings. In years past, once the budget has been proposed, CBRC has gone into high gear and has met twice a week. And given the fact that we only have currently 2 weeks to review, Jordan and I looked at the calendar, and there is Thursday, I believe, the 28th, and what was the early date in May that was that are open?
Yeah, so just so everybody understands what Roger and I had talked about before is the idea of adding a couple of collaborative work meetings beyond just our regular CBRC meetings, specifically just to work on the report. And 2 dates that Roger identified and I looked at were April 28th, that Thursday, after receiving the proposed budget, and then May 3rd is a Tuesday. Could also be a night that we could add another meeting. But also those are just suggestions. If you all decide that's what you'd like to do, we can also look at other dates.
Yeah, I think for me, the 4/28 seems like people would really have to dive. There may not be enough time for people to really dive into the budget within 2 days based on it, because it's turned, it's that evening, and then that gives people a day, and I work, and I'm sure other people do too. So I wonder if that 5, what did you say, 5/3 may be a good target for people. That gives people a week to review and come prepared. That's just my 2 cents.
Jordan, why don't you remind us what the dates are of our regular scheduled meetings, and then so we have those in mind as well as adding whatever dates.
Yeah, so after the proposed budget comes out on the 26th, the next CBRC meeting on the calendar is May 5th. And then by the time that it's supposed to be submitted, I think that might be the only CBRC meeting we have.
Yeah, I think that was originally scheduled, the May 5th one being the 9 out of 9 meetings.
Right. Thank you, Noberto. I'm like looking over here, over there.
Yeah. I'll try to be Alexandra.
How do other people feel about meeting on the 28th of April versus or the May 5th? Renee, how do you feel about that? Your sound's not on, Renee.
I agree with the 3rd. May 3rd.
Yeah, me too.
I can meet on the 28th. I'm like you. I don't know if I'll be finished with the he said it's the size of a phone book. I'm thinking I won't be done. Is there a summary?
No. There, well, I don't know. I presume that the thing comes out in 2 volumes, but at least that's been the format in the last couple of years. Um, um,
Yeah.
Each year, I would say
Yeah, I have a
that
big,
it's thick. It's
yeah,
like,
I remember from last year. It was,
and from previous experience, the general public usually drills down their interest is focused in what falls in the second volume normally, because it maps out individual appropriations per school, what the staffing is per school, you know, all those kinds of questions that get asked, and Norberto, maybe you can answer. Director Constam at a policy committee meeting just a week ago presented a spreadsheet that identified the actual dollars that are expended per student by school, and there's a there's a significant difference in at least the data that she was presenting. So
I'm not familiar with that report, but I will, it sounds familiar with what normally gets presented in the volume 2. So in the volume 2 report, to your point, Roger, is the one that most folks tend to gravitate to because it provides, like the first few pages provides a heat map, essentially summarizing all the schools, the per pupil investment based on like proficiency and a variety of other factors. And then as you page through that volume 2, you get into the pages that provides more detailed information on a school basis. So I don't know if she had that report from the current year or if it was for a preliminary report for the upcoming year. I have not viewed that information. I don't know if yes, if she happened to have gotten her hands on it yet for that committee meeting, but for the most part, that volume 2 provides that type of information.
well, I can just recall that, you know, for example, some of the Title I schools were something like $11,000 was being expended per student, whereas a high school like Lincoln was like 6,500 or something like that. It was quite a stark difference.
Yeah, and so like what I can talk to that from, like generally speaking, just a lot of it comes down to if it's a title school or a TSI school, which is targeted, or a CSI school, there are additional federal dollars that go towards supporting the school, which will naturally increase the amount of funding per student. Then the other dynamic that plays into that is economies of scale. So if you have a 1,500 student school versus a 600 student school, there could be some variations there because I know it's going to sound super technical, but you get into your fixed costs. You know, there's a principal, there's a secretary, and the more students you have, the cost gets spread. But not generally speaking, that's some of the dynamics that come into play. You have by default federal funded schools, or excuse me, title schools that have additional federal funds. So there is additional supports there. And then the other factor that can play into it is the size of the school.
Well, I sense that there's consensus that we would add at least one more meeting to on the what was it, the 3rd of May, Jordan? Okay, and then we're meeting later that week on the 7th. Or is that
Mhm.
right?
Correct.
Okay. If we're to use the current format, I would welcome a volunteer to prepare a draft um, um, when for that um, May 7th meeting, so that we might. I'll just state my own bias that in years past, if an entire committee tries to write a report, it goes, it tends to redound in a very long and lengthy meeting. If a person is tasked with being the scrivener of preparing a draft, then people can come up, comment and add or subtract from the draft, and we get a resolved report in a more disciplinary fashion. And one year, as I've said before, CBRC started at 6 o'clock and did not conclude its meeting until 2 o'clock the next morning. And that was an example where the entire committee was trying to write the report instead of a more focused approach. So I'll shut up and let others talk. So.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. I think the meetings are the 5th, or the 3rd and the 5th, right? That's what we're talking about, not the 7th. Okay. And then I'd also, if Roger, if you're doing the proposed budget summary, I'd be willing to take on the local option levy one, if you want to split them up. Or someone else
Well,
do it.
I suppose I could do that, but I'd be more comfortable if we switch roles.
With what?
That you do the budget and I do the local option, but
Oh, which one were you talking about?
no, I said I could do either, but my preference would be to do the local option first and to have someone else do the budget.
May 5th.
Or maybe Renee would like to be a drafter.
No, Renee wouldn't. I'm reading scholarships applications. But thank you for thinking about me. And then May 10th, we present.
That's the way it stands right at the moment until the board takes any action to extend the period of time that we have to review.
And I'll add a little bit of context there. I did submit a request for consideration to push out the report to the 17th to the board office, just based on the feedback from Roger last week or earlier this week. That's just been such a long week. And just thinking about, or just kind of taking into account. So I'll follow up as soon as possible, but it's in the board office. They need to talk through it and bring in the rest of the board directors to just have that conversation about moving it. So the ask is there to at least create another week. And so that's one thing. The second thing is with the local option levy, our plan right now would be to present that information at our next a CBRC meeting. So from a timeline perspective, that information will be coming sooner rather than later. And so that kind of helps decompress some of that time, crunch there. So a request has been sent to give another week for the full formal board report on the superintendent's budget proposal, and then B, local option levy information should be coming at our next CBRC meeting.
Roberto, Roseanne did respond to your proposal and pointed out that the 17th is a work session of the board. And so then I responded, does that mean the proposal is recommending that we report on the 24th, which was the next regular scheduled board meeting? And and the ball is in your court. So
Yeah, as soon as I get some feedback from the board office, we'll follow up and then just help give some guidance on that.
So
And-
would it be your feeling that after you present the data about the local option levy to at our regular meeting, that the report is essentially made by just saying we agree and we put it in report format?
Yeah, in a nutshell, it'd be presenting information, explaining it, and going through discussion questions, and subsequently putting into that report format. And so we could tuck that away for the time being until we get to the full-on presentation on whether it's the 10th or the 17th or the 24th. But at that point, at least that box can be checked, that data has been reviewed and the report can be prepared.
Sounds good to me. Parker, you have been rather silent tonight.
I have. However, I think we're headed in the right direction. Following the normal course that I've come to know and love, in terms of our committee. But if there's any way that you'd like for me to help, or you think I can be utilized, I'd be happy to help.
Great.
Renee, did you want to say something?
No, I was just saying thank you
Oh,
to
good.
Parker, basically.
I do need to excuse myself. I do need to drop off. I have another commitment, but obviously if things come up, I will be available and can follow up accordingly. And so I think unless there are any other questions for me right now, I can hold on for another few minutes.
Well, I think we'll all conspire to put the full load on you as soon as you leave us.
Right. Tends to be the case.
So I do have a question. You
Yes,
said the levy report will be at our next meeting. You'll have that at the next meeting?
that's the goal, correct. Yes.
So the next meeting is the 21st of April,
I'm going to pull up my
is
calendar.
that correct?
Yes,
Okay, so then that's out of the way on the 21st, because we can work on that during the meeting?
correct.
Okay,
Yeah, the one of the big benefits of that is that it's like retroactive. So it's the collections that have occurred. So we can go ahead and present the data we have.
okay. And then the 26th is the board meeting. Okay,
All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your evening, everyone. Bye-bye.
thank you.
Yeah, you too, Roberto. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Well, I
I
see
do have
Alana.
Oh, I was going to say, I do have a question for the group. because I think we haven't really gotten to this point, because we've talked about dates and things. In terms of the work, the actual writing of the report, how has it occurred in the past? I've heard that some folks have taken sections of it. I'm just thinking maybe we discuss like logistically who's actually going to do what, and if we want to do it that way again, or I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I know last year it was, I think Judah and Sarah took the lead in getting it to a point where then people could, like Roger was saying, I think everybody just kind of added their comments, and they worked off of that. And I'm sure they stayed up to the midnight hour finalizing it. And so I do think it's a collective effort. And I think the more we can prepare, I'm fine structuring, taking what was written last year and just start, updating it for 22, 23 as far as dates and reference and committee members. And then I think it'll be, maybe we could break it into focus sections or something that, people have an interest in, or, there's been a lot of good discussion the last few months in our group here of what things people have had questions on, or really what kind of the board goals and focus and living up to the promise. And so I think it's, maybe there is a way to have people take sections. I need to go back and look at kind of the subject line items, but that's just what I remember from last year. It was a lot in that last week.
Oh, sorry. And when you read it, it's very similar to what is happening this year or has happened this year. It's so the CBO, the community-based programs, the scores, the test scores. I mean, we're kind of in the same situation we were last year. So
at the most recent board meeting, there was some progress made based on the MAPS testing, the second MAP test that was, but we did not attain the 60% goal.
right.
And some of the bar graphs were bumping up close to it. And Dr. Adams ended his report by recommending that the board adopt 60% as their goal for next year. And there was question raised whether that conflicted with the contract that the board had made with the superintendent, and they discussed it for quite a little while, but it seemed to finally resolve that the board did recognize that 60% was probably a wise suggestion, and I understood that they adopted Dr. Adams' recommendation, but I could be mistaken.
Roger, could you clarify what the 60% mark goal was, what that means?
Oh,
I know it's complicated. There's a whole
it maps basically measures both reading proficiency and mathematical skill, and it appeared that in some respects it depends on at what level you're looking at in terms of elementary or middle school or high school and so on, but in the aggregate I believe we do a little bit better with reading than we do with math, and historically the district has been down around about 40% of those that are at proficiency level, at the grade level that they're being tested. And the goal was to raise it up to 60. And like I said, from what I understood from Dr. Adams' report, we're close to 60 in a number of areas, and depends on which demographic group you're talking about.
Yeah,
whether-
not students, not Black and Indigenous.
Yeah, but, and then also it's pointed out that the native and Southeast Island cohort is so small that you can have a failure of one student even, and it swings the data quite remarkably. Whereas if you have a cohort of several hundred, then it doesn't swing as that's just I can remember historically when I was PTA president of Franklin, we had one year we had only 4 Native American students. One did not pass with the cohort. That looked negatively on the statistics for Franklin that year. The next year, everybody in the cohort graduated, and so everything looked great, And so but you're only talking about 4 or 6 or 7, 8 students, as it wasn't like several hundred and so on. So and in some areas, I noticed Asian American students were excelling quite well and so on. And
Like last year.
yeah, but what's that? I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
I'm just saying that's like last year and the year before.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
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 But we
Is the
made some-
60% goal? Is the 60% goal for 1 year or 2 years? What is the goal set for? Like, what's the timeline?
Well, it was supposed to be reached by this end of
This year.
school year. And what Dr. Addis was suggesting is that we extend it by a year. And it was my understanding that after quite a long discussion, the board agreed with that.
I will also, just so you all have it, I will send you a link to his presentation that Dr. Adams gave and the recording of the board meeting in an email later, not right now. Just clarify.
So, Lisa, I think if you're willing to update the present report with current information, that might be a starter for us to go from, and then we can make individual assignments at the initial meeting after the presentation of the budget. What's that date, Jordan?
26.
26th is when the budget is presented, and that's a Tuesday. And are we meeting that Thursday or it's the following week?
It's the following week.
Okay.
I'll have just kind of the drafts, just updated from a form and dates and committee members by the 21st, by our next meeting, so that if there's someone that could take on the local option levy piece, then it'll be ready to kind of go. And then same with the budget. I'll just get it done so it's ready by the next meeting.
Well, I'd be happy to work with the staff on the local option levy unless somebody else wants to volunteer.
Oh, do you mean to date that one? You're gonna take that piece on? Or do you want me to work on that and the proposed budget just to get it to the point where you can take it?
So Lisa, when you say you'll have a draft, you mean like a template?
I mean, just taking what was written last year and
Right.
I'll just start plugging in like for 22, 23 and
Right, okay. Yeah, like,
yeah, I'm not touching it as far as what we're gonna highlight, but just kind of getting it in the form and format we need ready to go. I think that's what we're talking about is.
Yeah, and would you, in terms of like workflow organization, do we want to keep this all in like a Google Drive? I'm happy to help with that and just kind of keep a hold of it, so it's all in one place. We can all access it. Yeah, I'm happy to facilitate that and even send it an email if you need, but just let me know.
Yeah, I think that would be good. So there's some central location where it's being kept.
So Lisa, just to make sure I understand, you're proposing to do your work by the 21st of April, is that correct?
Yeah, if what we're talking about is just taking what was written last year and just kind of getting it ready for this year, getting it ready to kind of plug in the numbers that we'll get on the 21st and just, yeah, getting it ready so that we can start plugging in things as we get the local option levy numbers and then, you know, once the proposed budget is out that we can.
And you're proposing to do that on the budget report or the local option report or both or?
I can do both. It's not, I'm not proposing that I'll write them once we have all the information, but I'm willing to have them so that they're ready to go for this year, if that makes sense.
that makes sense. A
Okay.
template.
Yeah.
In a way, it's a template.
Yeah.
Got it.
I quite candidly think it would be good if you did both and they would be similar and we can then work from there if that's okay with you.
Yeah, and maybe my goal then would be by next Thursday or by the end of next week that I can send you and Jordan just to kind of take a look at this is what we were all thinking, and then that way I have another week if I need to change anything.
Yeah, I'm sure Jordan will avail himself at your convenience.
Okay. Yeah, I don't like to wait to the last minute, so I'd rather do it ahead of time than not.
Good.
Thank you,
Well,
Lisa.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much.
But then I was just going to say, then I think it's really like the collective effort once the proposed budget comes out of really like having people hone in on specific things that we need to address.
Does everybody agree with that? And if so, we'll move ahead. Want to raise your thumbs? Renee's a good thumb indicator. Okay, good. So Jordan, have we done our duty tonight? And you ready to?
I would say the only other piece of discussion that we didn't talk about, I think, was staff
Your
open
availability.
Yeah.
About staff availability.
Yeah. So one, just so everyone knows, one thing that we were discussing, Roger and I discussed this, but I also discussed it with Alexandra and Noberto, is while you are actually working through the report, we of course we don't want to have any influence over the report, but we want to provide you with as much support as you need. Whether that's just having one-on-one support to answer questions for you or to help with access or whatever it is, language, whatever it is. We want to provide that time to you. So one of the ideas we had was maybe just having, for us, we could have like between this date and this date, you can reach out to us and say, hey, can I get an hour with one of you to work on this part? We just want to throw that out there as an option. Of course, that is entirely up to you. If you feel like you don't need that, that's okay. But if you do feel like you might need that, if you can let us know, and then I am happy to kind of organize on the staff side what those hours could be. I know that people on our team have been really flexible with evenings, and of course we work throughout the day. But yeah, just we wanted to throw that out there as an offering to you all, and just get your feedback on that.
Yeah, I can't remember who was the woman last year that was really, I think we asked her a ton of questions, and then it was like anybody who submitted questions, they would come back with all the answers so everybody could see it. I think that was really helpful.
Was that Claire?
Yeah, maybe it was Claire, and it was really great because then we could all see what people had asked and then what the responses were. And then I also think she was just a great resource, yeah, like as we dove into the budget and stuff. So yeah, I think it would be great if there was staff available.
How did oh, I'm sorry, I didn't have this on mute, so you're hearing my typing. I apologize. How were those Q&As? What system were they using to ask those questions?
It was done in the chat originally, and then I think it morphed into a document that was on the Google. What did you call that library of Google documents?
The Drive, the Google Drive.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I like the idea of having, I mean, I'm totally up for it. And but yeah, I like the idea of having Q&As that other people can see the answers to, or just compiling that into a place. I just don't know what for you all would be the best tool for that.
Yeah, because I think people were asking her questions on the side, and I think it's like not everybody benefited from it. So then they started, and I actually just found one that I can forward to you if you don't have something, just an example of what she provided.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd just like to see what, yeah, if that worked well, I'd love to see if we can just kind of do that again. I still want to say, like, I still want to point out the value, especially, you know, for and the fact that we have students involved in this process. I want to say, like, having that one-on-one support is there and offered to you. So if you feel like we can always take what we discussed and put that into a document separately, but if you feel like you need one-on-one support in order to write something out, you can always reach out and we will find an hour or space time to do that.
Jordan, I think that that's a great idea. And I also would potentially ask that if that format doesn't look like it could be as helpful, maybe a document that has the different topics and then the questions that have been asked either in person or over email and the answers to them below each of the categories would be really helpful and pretty simple. And I will definitely see you in person or over the phone. Don't worry.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I'll collaborate with Alexandra on this too, because she's really, really great at this kind of stuff. So Lisa, I'll take a look at what you're sending me and what has happened last year. But yeah, I'll check in with other staff to see if they have other options that might be even better for you all.
Yeah, I just emailed it to you, Jordan. So I think she just kind of set up like a table template and then plugged in questions, but I like Alona's thoughts on like topics and then subsequent questions and so yeah.
I concur that was a good system last year, and it sounds like that would be well for us to emulate this year. Hobbs, Parker, Renee, anybody else have any suggestions or before we sign off for tonight? And Jordan, would you remind us when we do meet again?
Can I ask if we could potentially spend a little bit of time next meeting looking at what those potential categories or the separation of the report could be, just so that to potentially assign them, or I mean, I think that would just help me to think through which section that I would potentially want to be lead on the first iteration of the report for.
Well, Ilana, do you think something more than what reading the previous reports that there were to be additional categories that were not in those reports that you're talking about?
Just if we wanted to do it any other way, since we're going to be doing the Levy report together, if we were going to break up the other ones, since then we'd only have, I don't know if I'm asking the wrong question, but just if we wanted to do it in any other format, if we could figure that out before we get the budget.
Well, I think because you joined the meeting later, we did discuss the format early and decided to follow the format of the 2 previous years.
I actually heard that part. I was asking about breaking up the different parts of the reporting, not doing them differently.
Ilona, would you want to kind of meet offline to discuss? I'm happy to call you and as I'm kind of laying out the straw of it, would that, and see if you and I could come up with what would make logical sections to do. And I'm not putting you on the spot either. I just,
yeah, no, I would
try and figure that out.
Yeah, no, would be happy to. I just, you know, we noted that it landed on 2 people before because of how the format was. And I just don't want that to happen again this time. So I was trying to think through how we could be more collaborative and each person taking maybe page 1, page 2, you know what I mean?
Okay, yeah.
So yeah,
well,
happy to meet offline.
if you don't mind, I'll reach out to you in the next, week so that we could maybe just talk out some ideas that we could come back with to the committee in 2 weeks.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Okay, are we ready to adjourn, or do we have any other questions or observations to share? Jordan, I got to ask. Oh, okay. Excuse me, Renee. Go ahead.
You asked if we were ready to adjourn, and I said I'm good. I'm good to go.
Oh, you are.
You put double thumbs up.
I'm waiting for Jordan to tell us again when we're meeting.
Yeah, so the next CBRC meeting is April 21st. Yeah, just the plan that meeting is mostly to go over the local option levy data.
Okay, good.
But if you feel like we should add more, or I know some of you will be collaborating or talking outside of these meetings. If you feel like we need to add more to the agenda, just feel free to reach out to me. I can always add more. These meetings tend to run short, but we can have a full 2-hour meeting if we need to. So, yeah. She's always been
I
a great
have to
job.
leave 15 minutes early though. So,
It's okay today.
and I will just tell you, I'm going to make this announcement. Kamal Siddiqui, who is a diver with Diving with a Purpose, is going to be speaking at OMSI at 7 o'clock. And Diving with a Purpose is the organization that found the last known slave ship, the wreckage of the last known slave ship. And they were on the cover, the story is on the cover of it's in the last month's National Geographic. So, and he lived in Portland So I have to leave around 6:45 to make sure I get a seat. And
What day is that?
you might want to go to that. I will send you a link if you want it.
Yeah, please do, Renee. That'd be
I
great.
will. I'll send it.
Is
I'll
that
send
on
you
the-
the information.
Is that on the 21st?
It's on the 21st.
Send it to the entire committee if you would, please.
I will. I sure
Okay.
will.
And
It's fascinating.
and I'm sure we can accommodate the
I'll come 15 minutes early.
Oh.
But I gotta leave. Okay.
Okay. Well, if there's nothing else to share, I'll call the meeting to a close, and we'll see you on the 21st of April at 5 o'clock.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye.
Good night.